Welcome to the Niche Pursuits Podcast. Are you ready to discover some niche business ideas that actually work? Well, it's time for a motivational kick to jumpstart your next big idea. Here's your host, Spencer Haas.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Niche Pursuits Podcast. I'm your host, Spencer Haas from nbsp.com. And today I'm excited to have a guest with me back on the program. I've got Hayden Miyamoto, who has actually been on the podcast 3 times previously. This will be his 4th time, which is unprecedented. If you haven't heard Hayden in the previous podcasts, Hayden has a couple of websites that he's involved with over at nohatdigital.com and wiredinvestors.com. He's built out a ton of websites, and he's currently involved with Wired Investors and investing in web properties and then growing those for eventual resale. But one thing that I've always loved talking about with Hayden is his link building strategies. Previously, we had talked a lot about private blog networks, PBNs, but both of us have decided that we are no longer doing that. So today we're talking about different link building strategies, and specifically how Hayden goes about finding new link building strategies and systematizing and automating those strategies. A couple of the strategies that we're going to talk about today are using Creative Commons images to generate tons of authoritative white hat links to your websites very quickly and at scale. And then another strategy that Hayden is implementing right now is called foreign news jacking. And I'll allow him to go into that, what that's all about. But he's seen a ton of results from getting lots of links from great websites. And so hopefully you can pick up a couple of strategies as you listen to this podcast. Also, another thing that Hayden and I are excited to announce today is that we are actually creating an internship and a course together. And you can find out more details by going to authoritymachine.com. But essentially, the internship is going to go through how we build out content websites through keyword research, content creation, how to outsource, and all of that, right along with coaches and other interns to keep you motivated. And then the course is going to be more in-depth and a little bit longer, that will also involve the link building strategies that we talk about here today and other link building strategies that can be used at scale and hopefully eventually automated. But they're both going to be available at authoritymachine.com. So if you head over there, you can at least get on the notification list. So when we have more details, we can send those to you. But for now, please enjoy the interview with Hayden Miyamoto. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Niche Pursuits Podcast. I'm your host, Spencer Haas from nbsp.com. And today I have a guest back on the show. This is somebody, if you've been listening to the podcast for a few years, he has actually been on a few times. And so I'm happy to welcome back to the podcast, Hayden Miyamoto. Hayden, how you doing?
I'm good, Spencer. Thanks for having me for a 4th time.
Yep, absolutely. It always seems like there's something new or evolving that, is a good reason to have you back on. You always share great information. So I'm happy to have you back.
I'm happy to be here.
Yep, absolutely. And so let's sort of take people from where we were and bring them into 2016, or to, bring them from our last podcast interviews. You've always shared a lot of information about link building and sort of creative ways to find link opportunities and those sorts of things. And as people know, Google changes, and so do link building strategies. And some of those things that we talked about in particular, PBNs, private blog networks, have changed. They're kind of a little more risky. And I believe both of us are in the same boat and have decided we're not doing PBNs anymore. That's sort of old strategies. And so basically, I'd like to know what's working for you right now in 2016 as far as link building is concerned.
Yeah, that's a good question. There are actually several things working well. I've kind of approached this with one direction, which is like, what can I do to kind of create link acquisition vehicles as opposed to, exchanging one article for a link continuously.
Right.
So it's a mix of, taking systems that people, know fairly well, like, infographics and top lists and stuff like that, but really heavily systematizing them, as well as kind of coming up with new ideas.
Right. And, we're going to dig into some of the details, specifically what you're doing to give some people, hopefully something they can sort of at least chew on and hopefully get some good links out of as they put in the effort. But what kind of results are you seeing from these link building strategies? And we're going to share these strategies here in a second, but what kind of results are you seeing from these new strategies you're using?
So one strategy, which I think I found out maybe a bit over a month ago while doing just some reverse engineering of backlink profiles, I just kind of on a lark, I started it. I had one person work on it for a couple weeks. And based on that, we've gotten in May alone, like 150 links from, I think, 100 different linking root domains, all completely passively. And we could probably get considerably more if we just put a single VA on it, maybe a few hours a day. And these are not, it's obviously across a wide spectrum of quality, but, in the last month, we got links from like Vice, Copy Blogger, SitePoint, big links.
Right. Big authoritative links. That's awesome. I mean, that's huge. I know a lot of people work a significant amount of time. You mentioned guest posting, right? I mean, people do tons of outreach and maybe they do really well and they get 10 guest posting opportunities in a month. And that's huge, but you're seeing 100, 150, did you say, links, in the last month or so from this one opportunity. Of course, we want to dig into what that specific thing is. We've been a little bit vague up to this point, and maybe we're going to, keep people in suspense just for a little bit. But how do you go about finding these different ways? I mean, you sort of discovered how to build links using PBNs, and you discovered, building links in other methods that you've sort of scaled. And now this seems like a new one. How do you sort of keep finding all these new ways and opportunities?
So, I mean, I've been doing SEO for a long time. And when I first started SEO back like 13 years ago, everything was about sort of backlink analysis and sort of being a link ninja, right? Mm-hmm. And so I guess, so this latest example that's generating all these links, I have another company called Wired Investors, and we buy 7-figure businesses and improve them, and we apply these assets to them. And I actually found this one by just looking through another link profile and noticing something that someone else did, and then kind of getting curious and running with it for like a good half hour, an hour. And then, I mean, for the last 5 years, I've had enough to kind of have someone on staff that I could kind of just say, hey, spend the next 2 weeks looking at this, mm-hmm. dig into it full time or more or less full time. And then they kind of come back to me with the results. And then, the next step is always seeing whether I can scale it. And since the first time I came on, more or less, I've been scaling it through internships to see if it's something that could kind of work at large scale.
Yeah. So how does the individual that doesn't have the capital per se to hire somebody to be doing all this research and development, if you will, how does just the individual go about researching and finding these sort of link methods, if you will?
I mean, you have to invest in R&D, right? Research and development. I think not enough people do that, whether they're investing their own time and they just say, all right, well, a day a week, I'm going to look into someone's backlink profile, right? Or I'm going to try out this technique, that's supposed to work. If you have the finances and you can pay someone to do it, great. But if you don't, I just think, put your own time into it. At the very least, you're going to learn something.
Right. Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense.
That's definitely how I started.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I agree. And so there is a lot to be said about sort of R&D, right? I mean, just I think of it in a way as sort of thinking outside the box for, I hate cliche phrases, but sort of thinking on your own, right? A lot of times we read what's working well for other people, and certainly you should, sort of test those things. But a lot of times the best opportunities come when you sort of think on your own, figure out strategies that maybe others aren't doing. But if you're, looking at linking profiles and seeing perhaps what's working, it may spark an idea that can work for you as well, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think too many people approach R&D the wrong way, just rob and duplicate as opposed to try to do something new. I think if you look at it that way, there's kind of two ways to look at it. You can take what other people are doing and improve upon it, or you can, creativity is really just taking ideas and combining them. You can also take what people are doing and just apply systems. That's something that I know a lot of people do very well, whether they apply automation or they just, do things on spreadsheets and use kind of different plugins and stuff, which I can talk about as well later on. I think the main thing is to kind of give yourself a bit of give yourself some rules, right? So if you want to start link building, like one of my rules was, okay, I'm not going to exchange my time for a single link, right? I'm not going to go for like a 1-to-1 ratio. I'm not going to do guest posts, right?
Right.
Because what's the best I can do with guest posts? All right, maybe one person can get 10 to 20 guest posts a month if they work really hard at it. But I'm looking at, picking up 7-figure businesses that, probably need, if I want to beat my competition, the link velocity needs to be a few hundred links a month, right? So that's just not going to work. I'm not going to go and hire, 30 people to work on guest posting full time.
Right.
So when you give yourself limitations like that, I think it actually helps out creativity a lot, because you can just dispel a bunch of ideas that come to you immediately. It doesn't match my criteria. So,
right. No, that makes sense. So rather than keep people in suspense any longer, I think we should actually try and give them something a little more concrete. You sort of mentioned the big results that you've had from this most recent sort of link building strategy. Are you willing to go into that specific strategy, and maybe we can talk about one or two others as well?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I don't want to kill it, but let's do it.
Yeah, all right. So why don't you share, that strategy, or at least as much as you're willing to share about the strategy that you've been getting these high quality links in the last month or so.
Sure. It started when I was doing some backlink analysis on a site I was purchasing. And I noticed that this site was getting a lot of sort of links from kind of larger journalist outlets. I also saw like a Harvard.edu link, and a few of this person's links were just photos with attribution underneath, right? Mm-hmm. So image courtesy of, or via, blah blah blah. But they were on strong blogs, strong sites, and obviously 100% unique content around the link, and very topical. This was a very niche link in specific, so I kind of started looking a little deeper specifically in that niche, and noticed one other guy also doing it in the UK. And I thought, all right, well, let's see, if this is being done in other industries. And so I started searching basically on Flickr at the time for different keywords, and trying to figure out a way to tell how often that keyword was being used by big blogs and journalists for images. If this makes sense, right? So I go to Flickr, I make sure to set up, go on Creative Commons and set up for commercial reuse, right? Which not a lot of people do. There's not too much to choose from. Okay. And then I put in different keywords to figure out, what was being used. And then I'd use Google Images reverse image search to kind of find exactly how often images were being used. And based on doing that at scale, I can kind of figure out, kind of like keyword research, right? So how often do journalists, search for social media? How often do journalists search for images related to, Japan, whatever, right?
And when you say how often do they search for, you're not necessarily getting a search volume per se, but you're getting an image volume that's coming back, right, on that Google reverse image search.
Yeah, so I'm actually getting how often do they actually
how do they use it?
Images related to that, yeah.
Okay.
So I kind of set up a system to do that for me in a fairly automated fashion, and sort of figure out where opportunities existed, specifically, for either creating new Flickr images and optimizing for Flickr. And yeah, I mean, the systems and the details are really what kind of allows the scale, but.
Right. But essentially what you're saying is, so if you found that, in your example, you said social media, right? So if you found that large publications are putting up a lot of images, for social media related images, right? For that keyword, one way would be to create new images that sort of were pictures of, or images related to social media, put them on Flickr, and then try to essentially optimize the listing on Flickr to get more, more hits, more uses, maybe?
Right. Yep. So it's Flickr. There's also like Wiki Commons. There are a bunch of different sources. You can also optimize for actual Google Images. If you go to search tools and then you go to, they have usage rights as well.
Okay.
So commercial use allowed there. You can optimize for multiple sources. Yeah, and within the actual Flickr page, you actually put your attribution details, right? So you say, feel free to use this image, but please attribute it to, whatever, Longtail Pro or whatever your domain, right?
Yep, exactly. And so, I imagine that there's a lot of images there. And so I guess what you're saying is really the piece that sort of makes it easier is sort of figuring out how to both find what images to put up and just how to optimize the listings itself so people actually use it from Flickr. Yep.
And like the beauty of this, so when you search, so if you go to like a reverse image search for an image you find on Flickr, which you can do quicker by just saying going to Google Images, doing site:/flickr.com, and then keyword, and then making sure you set your usage rights to commercial reuse. Mm-hmm. And then in those results, you can right click on any image and you can go to search Google for this image. And then by doing that, it's going to tell you, 600 results or whatever, right?
Okay. Yep.
And from there, you can actually go to search tools again, and you can look at how many of those results came in the past month. And so that's sort of the way you can say, what's my link velocity if I ranked for this term, right? Or
right.
if I had a better image than this one for this term. And so, then it's completely passive links, right?
Yep.
You literally don't do anything. It just sits there and collects links for your site. You can go and change your attribution over time if you want to send links to a different site.
Oh, that makes sense. So all the links that, they linked, a year ago to one site, and if you decide to change your site, anybody new that links from Flickr will then attribute your new site.
Exactly.
Yeah. Right. Very cool. So I don't know if you want to share any more details. I know there's a lot of, it sounds like a lot of it is the sort of systematizing everything, right? So you can do this quickly and find the best opportunities, and right, that's sort of the secret sauce.
Yeah. There's a lot of details that go into it. I think a lot of people, this is enough to get started, and
sure,
they can figure it out, or maybe even improve upon it and see things that I didn't see. If people want to reach out, and if you want to reach out and talk about it, I'm open to that. Just do the initial part well first, and
right,
bring something to the table, and we'll talk.
Exactly. And I mean, it does make a lot of sense. I mean, bloggers like myself and other people creating sites, we're always looking for images, right? Great images. And anytime you can get sort of a Creative Commons, for commercial use, as long as you have that link, right, it's free to use. So people are using images a ton, and they are linking, giving attribution to the creator of those images. So
and when you think about it, so I have, at any given time, I might have up to 50 writers working on my sites. And of course, when you have that amount of scale, you need to have, SOPs in place, and those SOPs need to mention where you get your images. So,
right.
I'm not rare. There's a ton of other businesses have a lot more writers than I do, and they all have to do the same thing. So it really comes down to optimizing for them.
Yeah, very true. Absolutely. So maybe we'll leave that particular link strategy where it's at. Are you willing to share maybe one or two other link building strategies that are working well for you now in 2016?
Sure. So another one that we started testing out was actually something that a former intern emailed me about a year ago, and I remembered it and decided we got a couple guys here in Mexico to test it out. And basically, it's like we call it foreign news jacking, and we've kind of changed it a bit since we started. But we started by kind of going through foreign news. I have a site partner who's a bit of a polyglot, speaks multiple languages, and so she was basically combing through news in Chinese and Japanese and French, and finding news that had been released but hadn't yet been published yet in English. So when we first started, we didn't see a lot of success from it because it was a lot of work, and it took quite a bit of time to actually reach out to people.
Right.
Until we realized, like, if you got automation and systems in place, this could work really well. So what it kind of looks like now is we have RSS feeds for big, let's say, Japanese sites that publish news, multiple times an hour, right?
Okay.
And then within that, we have like kind of alert words or buzzwords on stuff that we know is very newsworthy, right? So let's say it's like robotics or artificial intelligence or any that type of thing, right? Or if like a gadget site, it might be like leaked or, release dates or something like that, right?
Right.
And what it does is we set up a cron job, which basically emails our person who, speaks multiple languages. And she checks to see whether that article is available in English. If it's not, she quickly writes up, 100 words talking about it, publishes on a site. And then we have a spreadsheet that's heavily automated through a free plugin called Yet Another Mail Merge, which I highly recommend to everyone. Which basically, we have the compiled list of editors across various categories and so let's say we have a gadgets list, right? So that would have like first name, last name, and email in it, as well as their site. And what Yet Another Mail Merge does is it connects to Gmail. So you can put a canned response in with column headers. And you just click a button and it automatically sends an email to everyone on the spreadsheet, a customized email to everyone on the spreadsheet.
Right.
So, that saves a ton of time. So, like, now the process really is, an email comes in to this woman. She does a quick Google search, sees there's nothing there. She writes 100 words, and then she clicks a button. And it immediately goes out to, like, say, 150 different news editors, right? And that results in links that are basically news links with, via our domain.
Man, that's cool.
Yeah. So, that's an example of, again, sort of one piece of effort, right? Writing one simple news thing, getting, multiple links. And it's also an example of systems making it possible, because if you don't have those systems, if we had to, check that Japanese news outlet for news every day, and then we had to also, manually email all these editors, like there's no way that we could get it done in time for it to still be, never mentioned, still be virgin territory for the editors.
Right. So I'm always thinking of how can the small time operator, the solopreneur, sort of implement these strategies, right? So I like to kind of break it down, see if we can make it simple for the solo guy. So is it possible to use something like Google Alerts instead of writing your custom cron job or whatever to notify you when something is mentioned?
The intern that actually brought this to me had done everything by himself, not speaking any foreign languages, or not speaking the foreign language he was looking at. He was literally just using Google Translate. I don't think he was using Google Alerts, but absolutely. I mean, you could use Google Translate to figure out certain words, set up a Google Alert for those words, and then just do it yourself.
Right.
I would say that aspect of actually reaching out to editors is, I think it's very much benefited from having a spreadsheet and using Yet Another Mail Merge, but literally
I agree.
Anybody can figure that out on their own after this podcast in 2 hours.
Yep.
It's not a hard thing to do. And paid software that help you with this, like BuzzStream and stuff like that.
That's just what I was going to say. I think there are tools that are, they're great looking, easy to use, right? If you're willing to spend a little bit of money to email a lot of people at once. But those are some great tips as well. So the difficult part maybe to understand is, and maybe you can, I think I got it, but maybe you can walk me through it just a little bit better, right? So if I don't speak, Japanese, I can use Google Translate to figure out, right, to when to get notified when whatever particular word is mentioned. Yeah, no, I guess I'm just trying to think, right? I mean, if you don't speak that language, you just have to do some Google Translate and you can set up your notifications that way.
Yeah. I mean, you literally just translate all the articles that you see.
Yeah.
I think you can also get a VA that speaks Tagalog and do it that way if you want, or get a VA that speaks Chinese or something. And I think it does work for some niches better than others. That being said, I think you can be creative with it, and you
Sure.
can probably find a way to make it work. And it doesn't always have to be, if you have a home design site or something, it doesn't have to be news. It could literally just be like cool architecture photo that you find in some random Korean news article, news site or something, right? And then you just, give that, so you submit it as a tip. That's actually one tip. To find these sites to populate your spreadsheet, you just search for a keyword with kind of submit tip or submit article to find like the sites that accept tips.
Okay.
Yeah, that's an important part I skipped over.
Yeah, well, that's what I was going to say, is that is kind of the difficult legwork that you have to do up front, is compiling a list of these news agencies or, journalists. I would imagine that is sort of the most time intensive part of at least getting everything set up, is finding the contact information.
Yeah. So when I buy a business now, basically I put in the time up front, usually within the first 2 months, to set up a system that can kind of passively generate those links, right? So I would set up the Creative Commons one right away. And I would set up immediately this newsjacking one and figure out exactly, what category of news to look for, what alerts to put in, and what source sites to use, right? So you put maybe a week of effort into that up front, and it really pays dividends forever, especially if you have VAs that just have the process down, so that, it emails the VA. The VA has, an SOP to simply just see if it exists in English. If it doesn't, writes it 100 words and then clicks a button.
Right.
And that goes without my intervention, which is great.
Exactly.
I mean, just to add a little bit more value, I guess, there is sort of something we're trying right now, which I think is going to work really well. It's actually combining the last two ideas. And so rather than, because we found it is fairly hard to find news. Sometimes we'll find a piece of news, and when we were first starting out, we'd find a piece of news and we'd be really excited. We'd write it up, and then, we'd start collecting all the information, and, maybe it'd be the next day, and then we'd check, and suddenly there are 1,000 mentions of it in English, right? Because we were too late to the party. And I realized, like, a lot of these places who mention it, especially if you can kind of get them right after they mention it, like with a Google alert, you could combine the two techniques and create like a really cool infographic around the news item, right? And then reach out to all the people who wrote about the news item and just say, hey, I did this cool infographic. I think it'd be a good fit. Notice, you don't have a good image on the page. And so we're trying that out right now. We're seeing some good initial success, but obviously, I like to scale things a bit more before really bringing it out to people.
Yeah, no, I think that makes a lot of sense. I mean, news organizations, they like to break news, but anything that is sort of a hot topic that's, within the last couple of days, they're still going to be writing about. So having a great infographic or image or something, I could see why, these organizations would be interested in publishing something like that. So that makes a lot of sense.
You could literally do a Trump infographic every day.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Pretty much as I go through my newsfeed, there's always some random, Trump infographic, trivia, news, whatever. Right.
Yep.
So that's a whole other podcast, right? How to monetize Trump.
Yep.
So
he would appreciate it.
I'm sure he would. He would love that. So you've shared a couple of great link building strategies, but along the way, you've mentioned specifically ways that you can automate and systematize things. And you've also mentioned that you used interns a lot, right? So I'd like to dive into that a little bit. I don't know how much we can go into specifically sort of automation, right? Because it's maybe you need programmers or it's very specific to each method you're doing, right? The way you automate something. But maybe you can talk a little bit about systems and how you're using interns as well and what you've done recently in the past.
So when I find a technique, like I said, I usually try to give myself a little bit of time to actually kind of get my hands dirty and like look at a backlink profile. And when I do that and I find something interesting, I'll give it to usually someone here in Mexico to kind of dig into a little deeper. I'm sitting next to Nick, and he's actually the guy who was kind of did all the work on that Flickr thing.
Awesome.
And I don't set up, I don't try to automate yet, right? So first I try to, prove it once or twice or 3 times. And then I generally bring it to an internship, with that's sort of where the systems in terms of just like spreadsheeting and SOPing and making it such that a VA could do it easily kind of comes in, but there's still no programming here because I'm validating the idea at scale.
Right.
If that goes well, then I look at actual true automation or scaling it up with VAs. But yeah, I mean, internships have always been, a lot of the time interns also improve upon processes, which has been great. But I mean, through interns is when I scaled up, PBNs 3 or 4, however many years ago that was. And through interns, I've probably scaled up all of these. And most work to varying degrees. But what's truly telling is whether a technique can work for everyone who tries it, right? Not just sort of the few talented people who are willing to do extra work or are more creative. But if it works for everyone, then I know this is a system that can scale out infinitely to Filipinos. Right.
Exactly. And so, we've talked about your internships before that, like you mentioned, you did, 2, 3, 4 years ago. And a lot of that was focused on scaling out private blog networks and building out some other sites that you were working on. And just recently, we actually kind of teamed up. So some people, from Niche Pursuits are aware that we basically put together a team in Mexico, and you can go into a little bit more detail, but we had some interns come in and started working on one site in particular. And, we taught them all sorts of things from content creation, keyword research, and of course, link building. Right. So do you want to just talk a little bit more about the most recent internship that we did? And then we can talk a little bit more about some of the plans down the road for interns.
Yeah. So, I mean, the most recent internship was kind of more of it started out as more of a traditional keyword research sort of content optimization, siloing, on-page stuff internship. I think we had something like 56 people finish it. And then at the end, we thought, all right, well, we're going to test a link building internship.
Right.
And I think of those 56 people, 35 people signed up to, do another month-long internship. And in that one, we tested out a much more systematic way of approaching specifically infographics, contributor accounts, and top lists. I think we also showed guest posting and stuff too. So that incarnation, I think we actually gave too much out. So I think, next time we would probably focus more on like just two, probably, infographics or the top lists were the most successful across the board. Though I'm hoping we can look into this, those other techniques we talked about on this podcast in the next internship as well.
Right. Yeah. I think when you give, too many techniques, right, 4 or 5 techniques and they've only got a few weeks, it can be too much to juggle to try. I think when you focus on 1 or 2 strategies that work really well, you're going to see a lot more results. So I agree. I think that's kind of what we're going to do in the next one there as well. So you've used internships to help you scale, strategies and your businesses and that sort of thing. Can you talk a little bit about specifically, what did the interns get? And are you finding that interns are enjoying the experience, or is it valuable to them as well?
Yeah, I mean, we surveyed these last interns to get an idea as to, what they enjoy, what they didn't enjoy. I mean, overall, I've been doing internships for years now, and I think the most valuable, obviously the training is valuable, but I think the most valuable part is the structured guidance.
Right.
I think a lot of people, I actually just did another podcast last week and we were talking about, how can you become successful? What do you have to do? And really it comes down to just doing something, right? Just doing it and really doing it, finishing it, not getting distracted by the next thing. And so that's the one thing that I think internships have given everybody, aside from the training, is they know once they finish an internship, they know that they're able to actually, write every day, right? Or they know that they're able to actually build links, right? It's kind of like when you go through your, like a part of your life where you're just totally broke. And then for the rest of your life, you have this sort of instilled confidence that, you can live off of nothing. So, you can't be harmed.
Right.
So I mean, I think that's probably, at least in my opinion, the greatest value for the interns. I mean, maybe tied or a close second would be, that this is a very, very isolating profession, and meeting people who are sort of both at the same stage you are, or maybe a little ahead or even a little behind, is very useful. And I think in terms of partnered together, in terms of partnering, pretty much every partner I've ever had, aside from you, has been an intern at some point, and there's been dozens of them. So yeah, the partnership opportunities, the opportunity to meet like-minded peers,
Yeah, absolutely.
That's also valuable.
Yeah, no, it's huge. And, I'm sort of asking you all the questions, but, I obviously am well aware of the internships going on. I've helped not only back, a few years ago, I helped sort of launch those internships, although you guys were running them 100%. I did, of course, mention them on the podcast and on the blog. But the most recent internships, I've been involved in the internship as far as, making sure, the training content is up there, and I've kind of gone through that and been a little bit more involved in getting interns started throughout the internship. And it's worked really, really well. I've heard a lot of great feedback from interns that have been through the through the training, been involved with the other interns, and the motivation factor that you mentioned has been huge from what I've heard. You get people that have never made a penny online and have been trying, for a year, right? And then they go through this 8-week internship, and suddenly they're able to accomplish more than they did in the previous year, basically, because they have a plan, they have a structure, they have the systems all in place, and then they have the motivation of both the coaches that are there in the Skype groups that we have, and then the other interns, right, that are sort of motivating each other all along the way. So it really is beneficial, not just for people that are just getting started out, but with the particular internships that we've done and will do in the future. A lot of the strategies are more advanced, right? I mean, particularly with these link building strategies, we're going to try and do link building strategies that really work, are more advanced, and of course are very white hat and Google friendly overall. So I'll let you maybe talk a little bit about, what is next for internships and additional training that you are going to be doing.
Yeah, we'll be probably releasing both an internship and a course, sometime in June, hopefully. This is kind of similar to what I did with No Hat Digital, like maybe a couple of years ago. I know from a lot of experience that both were very valuable. The internship in this case will be all applied to a single site. So we're basically looking at growing out large sites, and we'll be dissecting the entire sort of business model of that site for all the interns as well, so they know exactly kind of how to do this, and also how to identify those sites through looking at like prospectuses and stuff of established businesses. So that's going to be the main goal. This internship is likely going to be a little bit of a mix. So there will be some content, on page optimization, silo stuff, but at the same time, there's also going to be some link building. Whereas the courses, we went over this many times. We just can't get it shorter than 8 weeks. It's just there's too much to go over, and so it goes over everything from keyword research to automating processes, grabbing our SOPs, how to find writers, and then finally a good 3 to 4 link building strategies.
Right, and again, I am involved here with the next internship and the course that you just mentioned. And the reason, maybe I should explain a little bit. The reason why I've gotten involved is, twofold. One is that I've always, ever since I started blogging, I'm constantly contacted by people asking if I do private consulting or coaching, or do I have a course? Right. And I've always said no, right? I don't really want to get involved with that. I have my other businesses that I run, and, that's what I'm excited to grow and work on, right? Is to actually grow my businesses. So I've always had to tell people no. The other reason that I'm sort of getting involved is because there's no way I could do it myself, right? Even if I decided, okay, I'm going to do a course, I can't do it. And I feel like you and Scott is somebody else that's involved, and a team there in Mexico with you is really able to support the training, the course, the internship, and everything. You've got the systems in place. And so it just makes a lot of sense, because I've constantly got so many people asking, where can I get training? Who do you recommend? Who's the best? Right? Where I can get really great information. And honestly, I've never really sent people anywhere. I've never said this is the best place to go for this. I haven't really had a go-to source. And so now I feel like I do. We're going to have, the training there, the internship for people that want to do that. And really it will be top-notch information, because I'm partnering up with you and your team there in Mexico. And so without sort of beating around the bush, we do have a place we can send people. So maybe we'll just let people go there. And I guess I'll let you announce that, tell people where they can go to find out more.
Yeah, you can go to authoritymachine.com. And just on the homepage there, you can put your email in, and we'll give you all the information about upcoming internships, which, by the way, are totally free. Monetarily free.
Right.
It's basically you're exchanging your time. And they're also, we get this question a lot, they're also 100% remote. You don't have to come down to Mexico or anything. You
right.
can work from home on your computer. So yeah, it'll give you all the information about the upcoming internship and the upcoming course or we'll email you when we're ready to launch.
Right. Exactly. And so I don't know if this is too much information, but maybe people will have questions. So as you mentioned, there will be kind of two options, right? People can do the internship, which you said is essentially free, right? They make a deposit, and then when they finish the internship, we return the deposit. So there's no money out of their pocket. But if people choose the internship, they essentially go through all the material, they get access to everything, but they have to work on one of our sites, right? So if they write content, that goes to one of our websites. Whereas if they choose the course option, they of course get access to all the same content, material, and everything, but they work on their own sites, and there will be a cost to that. We're still sort of finalizing all the details there, but if you go over to authoritymachine.com, that'll at least put you on the email list, and as we kind of finalize and figure everything out, we'll keep you notified when we have more information available.
And anyone that's ever kind of read No Hat SEO or No Hat Digital knows that I'm kind of the enemy of the sales page. So basically, to lay it out for you, I tend to just do a what's in it for you and a what's in it for us.
Right.
And so with the internship is actually, it's 4 weeks long. So it's actually not quite as much information as the course.
Right.
And often we'll also get questions about what's for me, the internship or the course. I don't know which one I should do. And the answer there is basically, I would say, if you don't have a site yet at all, or if you have a very, very new site, don't do the course. I think the course will be very valuable for people who've had an aged site, because everything that they do on the course, that you can see a return from it quite quickly. If you don't have a site and you'll be starting out from scratch, my advice is, start a site or do the internship and maybe launch a site at the same time, so that it can get some age, because the sandbox in Google is real.
Right.
And otherwise, I think it really comes down to whether you feel how much you value time, I suppose. But yeah, both are great programs.
Exactly.
I'm still myself.
Yep. No, I agree. And maybe we should have led with this, now that I think about it, is, we had interns go through the internship, and they were working on our site. And we recently just published a blog post on nichepursuits.com that kind of shared the results, right? So these are strategies that we implement into our own websites as far as content creation, keyword research, and everything that's involved in the internship. And we've seen a lot of great results. I mean, we've essentially, maybe you can share the numbers, but off the top of my head, we've essentially over doubled the value of the website, right? In just a couple of months, essentially?
Yes, it's February.
Right. Since February, we basically just had interns research and write lots of content and showed them, the whole process of what's involved there, and published it onto our site that we've had. And we've immediately started to see rankings without all the link building, in fact, see rankings and increased earnings, and the value itself of the website has increased quite a bit. And so that's the information that you're going to get in the internship. And then, of course, the course itself will have some additional lessons, if you will, some more in-depth link building and that sort of thing. So if you want to check that out, you can go over to authoritymachine.com and you can get on the notification list. And if not, hopefully this podcast has gotten you thinking about link building strategies that you can use. We've mentioned a couple here already, sort of the foreign newsjacking, then the Creative Commons image use link building strategy. But overall, Hayden, thanks for coming on the podcast one more time. Before we wrap up, is there anything that you feel like that we should have covered that we did not cover up to this point?
I don't know. I think people have enough to to think about.
Yep, probably so. So with that, any final parting words that you want to leave with anybody? Any sort of motivational thoughts or anything along those lines?
I'll repeat something I said in an old podcast, because I think it still rings true, which is like if you want to be successful online, you have to be either in the right place at the right time, or you have to innovate. You have to try something new. And so I just encourage people to take some of the stuff they learned at the beginning of this podcast, look into it, try to improve it, try to make it their own. And also, if they do an internship, to learn that, but always with a mindset of trying to improve it and trying to make it their own and make it better.
Absolutely. I echo those words strongly myself. That's what I've always tried to do in my own business. Is certainly I learned from others and things that people have published online and read those things. But a lot of my success has come when I've kind of tried and innovated upon strategies or done things on my own in a way. So I definitely echo those words. So once again, Hayden, thank you so much for coming back on the Niche Pursuits podcast. We appreciate your time very much.
Thanks for having me.
And thank you, everybody, for listening in to the Niche Pursuits podcast. Thanks a lot.